Welcome to the Familiarisation and Planning series, designed to introduce curriculum leaders and teachers to the Australian Curriculum version 9.0 Languages, Prep to Year 6. In this first session in the series, we will be focusing on the Understand This Learning Area section of the curriculum, before moving on to discuss the curriculum elements in Session 2. The final session in the series will address planning considerations for Australian Curriculum version 9.0. The QCAA acknowledges the traditional owners and traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet today. We pay our respects to their elders and their descendants, who continue cultural and spiritual connections to country, and we extend that respect to Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people here today. We thank them for sharing their cultures and spiritualities and recognise the important contribution of this knowledge to our understanding of this place we call home. Today's learning goal is to understand implications of changes to the Australian Curriculum version 9.0 languages, to plan for the transition in your own context. At the end of today's session, you will know you are successful if you have more knowledge about the intent and structure of the learning area in Australian Curriculum version 9.0 languages, and can identify actions for planning in your school. This recording is accompanied by a worksheet for you to record your responses to the activities and reflection points throughout the presentation. If you have not already done so, please take some time now to download or print the Session 1 outline resource. Outlined on screen, you can see there are 3 parts in this session. We will begin with an overview of the Australian Curriculum version 9. We will then unpack the Understand This Learning Area section of the curriculum, highlighting the changes in version 9. Finally, we will consider what these changes mean for you in your context and start formulating some next steps to take following the session. We'll start by orienting ourselves to the process of moving to a new curriculum and the purpose and structure of the Australian Curriculum version 9. Knowing what drives our curriculum helps us to contextualise languages and transition our plans to the new version. Firstly, let's consider what the process of moving to Australian Curriculum version 9 might look like in your context. You may have identified a process like that outlined on screen now. This might mean that you want to reflect on current programs to identify strengths, limitations, and opportunities. Review and audit your current programs against the Australian Curriculum version 9 to discern what is the same and what will be different from your current practice. Ultimately, once you have completed your reflection and auditing, you can start to make some decisions about how much you need to refine, realign, reimagine, or remove aspects of your current plans to align with the Australian Curriculum version 9. This session will help you frame up the work that needs to be done to make sure you and your colleagues are ready for the change. We are going to be looking at the specific elements of the curriculum that will need to be considered for your teaching, learning, and assessment. Keep your current programs in mind as we work through these elements. Think about the challenges and opportunities of version 9 for your school context. Let's start that process now by reflecting on your current programs and evaluating what you want to keep and what you might like to change. Therefore, your first action today is to consider elements that you know are working well. Reflect. Can you still see the place for them in the version 9 curriculum for languages? Then consider parts of your plan that you are looking to review. Reflect. How can the version 9 curriculum for languages provide an opportunity for you to make these adjustments to your programs? As we now navigate the changes in Australian Curriculum version 9 for languages, try to keep these reflections front of mind. Let's turn our attention to the curriculum itself. While there are changes in the revised languages curriculum, the three-dimensional interrelated structure of the Australian curriculum has not changed as part of the review. The diagram on screen visually represents these three dimensions. The Australian curriculum consists of 8 learning areas, with languages indicated in pinkish purple. Then there are 7 general capabilities: literacy, numeracy, digital literacy, critical and creative thinking, personal and social capability, intercultural understanding, and ethical understanding. You'll notice a name change of the ICT general capability to digital literacy to reflect current understandings in the field. The general capabilities have been refined, with changes to elements, sub-elements, and continua. And finally, there are the 3 cross-curriculum priorities: Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and cultures, Asia and Australia's engagement with Asia, and sustainability. When reflecting on how you are going to transition your current plan for teaching and learning, consider what opportunities exist to make connections across the dimensions. Now let's look at the learning area structure, which helps us to organise our teaching and assessment for languages. Each learning area in version 9 now follows a similar structure, allowing for more consistency when planning. On screen, you can see an overview of version 8.4 compared to version 9.0 with the main changes noted. Let's break down these main changes now. The organisation of the Australian curriculum in version 8.4, represented on the left, is in 2 parts. The first part is Understand How the Learning Area Works, which included the rationale, aims, key ideas, structure, and resources. The second part included specific elements about the languages curriculum, such as the year-level description, the achievement standard, strands, substrands, content descriptions, and content elaborations. Moving across to version 9 on the right, we can see the changes, especially in the language and grouping of ideas, which helps sharpen our understanding of what languages is. Version 9 begins with the Understand This Learning Area section, which provides detail of the intent and a snapshot of the structure. Following the Understand This Learning Area is the Curriculum Elements section, which shows the content associated with languages. Other variations between version 8.4 and version 9.0 are indicated by changes struck out. And bolded in purple are the new sections, which include the key considerations and key connections. These will, at different times, influence planning. Take a moment to review the changes in structure that we have just outlined. Understanding the structure of version 9 and the relationship between the parts is a key factor in strengthening our understanding of languages and the changes within it. You may wish to pause here to consider what will be important for you to consider as you begin planning for version 9. We will now move on to our core focus for this session. It is the Understand This Learning Area section of the curriculum. On screen in the shaded box, you will see the sections that form Understand This Learning Area. We will work through each of these sections throughout the presentation. We will focus on the curriculum elements in the next session of the Familiarisation and Planning series. Our final session in the series will focus on planning using all of these aspects of the curriculum. As we work through each element of the Languages Understand This Learning Area section and the changes we can see in version 9, let's keep our process in mind. Here is where we can begin to audit our current plans and consider what is the same in Australian Curriculum version 9 and what is different. You may wish to construct your own note-taking template, like the one on screen, to help you identify the similarities and differences you notice between version 9.0 and version 8.4 of the Australian Curriculum for Languages as we move through the presentation. A table has been provided for you on the Session 1 outline resource referred to at the start of this recording. We will begin by focusing on the intent of the learning area. We'll explore the introduction, rationale, and aims. Note that, in addition to the language's introduction, rationale, and aims, each language also has its own introduction and rationale. The language's introduction for version 9 states that the Australian Curriculum Languages has been developed to give all students the opportunity to engage in learning a language in addition to English. The Australian curriculum encourages the study of a language from prep. How this occurs is determined by the school and may be influenced by resources, timetable, and teacher expertise. The rationale and aims then capture why we teach languages, emphasizing that communication is vital to the human experience and that learning a language ensures students understand themselves as communicators. In doing this, it's important to consider the relationship of the rationale and aims to the goals of education in Australia, as expressed in the Alice Springs Mbarntwe Education Declaration 2019. The vision is for a world-class education system that encourages and supports every student to be the very best they can be, no matter where they live or what kind of learning challenges they may face. With this in mind, the Declaration sets out two distinct but interrelated goals. The first of these goals is that the Australian education system promotes excellence and equity. Therefore, as we are planning for Australian Curriculum version 9, we want to consider how our plans can enhance equity for all and promote the highest quality teaching, learning, and assessment experiences for our students. The second goal from the Mbarntwe Education Declaration states that all young Australians become confident and creative individuals, successful lifelong learners, and active and informed members of the community. The three dimensions of the curriculum and the learning area content presents wonderful opportunities to engage with this goal. So, what role does languages play in enacting these goals? Let's start by considering the rationale and aims. On screen is the QR code for the language's rationale and aims. Review the rationale and the aims, identifying the big ideas and/or main points. Reflect on your school's plan to evaluate how the goals of the Education Declaration and the curriculum are evident in these plans. Please pause the session recording to allow some time for you to review the rationale and aims for languages. Now that we have looked at the intent of the learning area, let's turn our attention to exploring its structure. This structure provides a way for you to consider the distinctive contribution languages makes to Australia's goals for education and conceptualise the nature of languages. Prep is now a separate year across all learning areas in version 9, which highlights its distinctive pedagogies and provides continuity from kindergarten. Prep is therefore no longer grouped with years 1 and 2, as it was in version 8.4. The Australian Curriculum Languages positions the strands as being interrelated. Students are taught how to communicate appropriately in authentic cultural contexts and reflect on how they communicate within their own culture or cultures. The Communicating Meaning in Language strand focuses on students learning to use language for communicative purposes in interpreting, creating, and exchanging meaning. The Understanding Language and Culture strand focuses on students learning to analyse and understand language and culture as resources for interpreting and shaping meaning in intercultural exchange. In each strand, there are substrands, content descriptions, and content elaborations. And just a reminder that the content elaborations are not the compulsory part of the curriculum, but are there to support teachers with ideas and examples. Let's now look at the substrands of each strand. The substrands indicate that which is valued in the teaching and learning of languages. Importantly, within each substrand are threads of content that tease out the knowledge, understanding, and skills. All substrands have been modified in version 9, and they have been reduced to 5 in total. In the first strand, communicating meaning in language, the content has been reorganized under 3 new substrands instead of 5. Interacting in language, mediating meaning in and between languages, and creating text in language. Note that although translating and reflecting are no longer separate substrands, there are still content descriptions about interpreting and reflecting. In the second strand, now named Understanding Language and Culture, students learn to understand that culture shapes the way they communicate, verbally and non-verbally. The revised curriculum provides opportunities for students to understand that there are different ways of thinking, that opinions, perspectives, and values can differ, and that's okay. Through this strand, students learn to examine how culture influences perspectives and to develop and apply strategies for open, flexible communication. For example, asking for repetition, clarification, and confirmation to sustain interactions. Learning that translation equivalence is not always possible. Understanding that intercultural understanding runs both ways. Or developing sensitivity to cultural differences. This strand is clearly linked to the general capability for intercultural understanding. Note that there are some variations in substrand names among languages. The Understanding the Interrelationship of Language and Culture substrand is named Understanding the Interrelationship of Language, Culture and Identity for the Framework for Aboriginal Languages and Torres Strait Islander Languages and Auslan. The final sections of Understand This Learning area provide further support and advice for teachers when planning for version 9 in languages. On screen are the key considerations for languages. This is a new section for all learning areas and includes learning area specific considerations to help teachers think about teaching and learning specific to languages. It offers a brief overview on the 2 sequences of learning. Teachers can use the sequences flexibly to meet the needs of their students in their contexts and according to their sector advice, as well as when to use English in the classroom, how macro skills are interrelated, and what constitutes a text and how purposeful activities should be organised around the chosen texts. There are also 2 new considerations highlighted in grey on screen for all learning areas. These are protocols for engaging First Nations Australians and meeting the needs of diverse learners. The key connections in the curriculum support teachers to integrate languages with other learning areas, embed relevant general capabilities, and provide possible contexts for learning through the cross-curriculum priorities. This integration can enrich and deepen student engagement with learning area content. However, it should be considered only when it provides opportunities to strengthen learning area content where most appropriate and authentic. These QCAA resources identify the connections between the Australian curriculum learning areas and the general capabilities. Level overviews provide an overview of where the general capabilities can be developed or applied in the content descriptions. There are also continua for 5 of the general capabilities, which provide more detailed information about the capabilities in the form of elements and sub-elements. This resource provides a sequence of learning for the capability from Level 1 to Level 6. This can be helpful for teachers when catering for students with diverse needs. The QCAA has also developed advice documents to support teachers to use the literacy and numeracy progressions. These progressions provide observable indicators of increasing complexity in literacy and numeracy, which can help teachers to develop targeted teaching and learning plans for students who are working at, above, and below year level expectations. These resources can support teaching teams to interrogate connections between the general capabilities and the learning area content in more detail. The final section of Understand This Learning Area provides further support and advice for teachers when planning for version 9 in languages. One such resource is the Languages Support Resource, which is an optional resource developed by ACARA for each language to support teachers as they plan teaching and learning programs to implement the Australian curriculum languages. The Language Support Resource includes examples of language and themes categorised under 3 different levels: beginner, intermediate and advanced. It is available on the Australian Curriculum version 9 website through the Learning Area Downloads tab. What are the key messages from this section of the curriculum that have resonated with you? Take a moment now to note down your key messages from this session. Let's pause and recap what we have done in this first session in our Familiarisation and Planning series, and what can be done with the new knowledge to help us transition to version 9. Here is the summary of the sections of the curriculum we have covered in the first session. We have considered the intent of the curriculum by reviewing the introduction, rationale, and aims. Next, we examined the structural changes for languages by reviewing the strands and substrands. And finally, we reflected on some new elements to the curriculum by reviewing the key considerations, key connections, and resources associated with languages. To finish this session, let's revisit the task we set ourselves as we began exploring the Understand This Learning Area section. What have you learnt in this first session about what is the same and what is different in Languages version 9? Consider how the changes will inform your planning by reviewing the similarities and differences you have noted throughout the session. What actions will you take to help prepare your plans for version 9? For example, you may identify the following actions to support the transition to version 9 in your context. Download and read through the new section on key considerations, or organise time in your next year or school meeting to review the changes to strands in teams. Pause the session recording at this point to reflect on the notes you have taken throughout the session. Identify 2 to 3 actions you will now take to plan for Languages version 9 in your context. As the session comes to a close, let us reflect on our learning goal and success criteria. We have built our knowledge about Australian Curriculum version 9 languages and identified some actions for planning in our school context. Before you begin the next session in the series, you may wish to access QCAA resources at the location noted on screen to extend your curriculum knowledge. There are many version 9 resources located here that will support you in planning for the transition in your context. These can be accessed by going to the landing page for a particular learning area and then clicking on the Australian Curriculum version 9 tab. That concludes the first session and our discussion on the Understand This Learning Area section of Australian Curriculum version 9 for languages. In the next session of our series on familiarisation and planning, we will be discussing the curriculum elements section displayed on screen. If you have any queries regarding the information from this session, please reach out to the K-10 Curriculum and Assessment branch with the contact details noted on screen. We thank you for your time in completing this session and look forward to working with you in session 2 of the Familiarisation and Planning series. If you don't do so already, we recommend you follow QCAA on one or more social media platforms to stay in touch with us and to find out about upcoming resources and professional learning.